this week's drive, we meet a new challenger, see the Rolls-Royce of motorcars, ride a four-wheeled bike, and bid on some very red history. All this and more in this week's Drive. The Williams Formula One team travelled to the Catalunya circuit near Barcelona, where drivers Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya unveiled the new FW25. Last year they managed just one win all season, Ralf Schumacher's triumph in Malaysia when he led home his teammate. Colombian Montoya was unable to add to the maiden victory he scored in Italy in his rookie season in 2001, despite starting on pole 7 times last year. What does he think of the team's new car?
I gotta say I'm very optimistic about it. I gotta say it looks really good. I think it's gonna, hopefully it doesn't take too much time to get it right, because it's such a new radical concept that I think to find the right setups and everything is gonna take a bit of time. But I gotta say congratulations to everybody in the team. They did a fantastic job. This car is such a big step. Looks fantastic.
Last season's Williams challenge was swept aside by Ferrari, who won 15 of the 17 races. Michael Schumacher was victorious 11 times as he sped to his 5th driver's title. How does his younger brother and rival see this season's prospects?
Well, it will be a very tough season. I hope that we are closer to Ferrari than last year. I mean, our goal is to have more victories, obviously, and to put them under more pressure. McLaren is a bit difficult to judge yet because they're going to launch their car very late, and we have to wait what that is.
The Williams team will be the only one of the top 3 Formula One squads to begin the season in Australia on March the 9th with their 2003 car.
Every year you want to do a better job than the year before. I finished 3rd in the Drivers' Championship and 2nd in the Constructors. I think the minimum thing we were trying to aim is minimum would be try to stay 2nd in the Constructors, but we have to really wait and see how quick the car is going to be. It's very early days. I think when we get to Melbourne, we're really going to have an idea how competitive we're going to be, because the minimum thing we need to get with this car is be at Ferrari's level by Melbourne.
Ferrari will start the campaign with last year's car, while McLaren's new car is unlikely to appear until the first European race in April. Sir Frank Williams' team last won the Drivers' Championship in 1997 with Jacques Villeneuve, but he is optimistic that the new car could bring the team victory.
I'm excited by it because it's so important, and a lot of work and thought has gone into it. It's different, but it's all constructed within a set of rules that apply to everybody, so it's not that different. But we're enthusiastic and excited.
BMW Motorsports directors Gerhard Berger and Dr. Mario Thiessen with the car's designer Gavin Fisher. The team's test driver is Marc Genet. He's been working hard on the new car. Berger was asked about the new rules for this year.
1 lap qualifying on Saturday and no driver aids after Silverstone mid-season. What do you make of that?
I personally like it because I think that could cover both problems. It should reduce a bit costs, and it gives again more input from the driver. I think that's very important. And the fans, they like to see sliding cars. I think they like to see good starts, bad starts. So I think it's a good step in a good direction.
Juan Pablo Montoya is a potential champion. He's taken the fight to Ferrari and Schumacher Sr. more than once, and his string of 7 pole positions prove that he's got the pace. Yet, for a variety of reasons, he didn't clinch a single race in 2002. Williams, winners of 9 Constructors' titles and 7 Drivers' Championships between 1980 and 1997, with drivers like Mansell, Prost and Hill, have recognized that they would have to develop a more aggressive car to close the gap to Ferrari. The new car is shorter than last year's and, despite limitations imposed by the regulations, has a new aerodynamic package. However, the car is not yet in its final aero specification, so the team's focus has been on learning the car and putting as much mileage as possible on the new car's components. BMW Motorsport director Mario Thiessen said the new P83 engine was designed to be, like last year's model, the most powerful engine in Formula One, revving to over 18,000 RPM. After the launch, the team had a 5-day testing session. They used 2 days for engine development work, with Marc Genet driving the old car fitted with a new engine. With the new chassis, the FW25, the focus has been on testing the new engine in its final surroundings. For example, checking the cooling system, oil circulation, intake system and exhaust system. This first test confirmed all the systems were operating successfully. At the next test in Valencia, they should be closer to a basic starting point for the aerodynamic setup. Once this baseline is achieved, technicians and drivers will begin to work on improving the balance and fine-tuning the drivability of the new car. The next 3 test sessions prior to the first Grand Prix will focus on race performance setup of the whole package. Late last year, a different kind of Formula One test was being run in Beijing, when Minardi driver Alex Yoong returned to the country of his ancestors, bringing along the first ever Formula One cars to be seen in mainland China. The Malaysian-born Yoong, the first ethnic Chinese driver on the Formula One circuit, was in Beijing with fellow driver Christian Albers on a snowy Formula 3 track outside the Chinese capital, promoting the sport. The two gave a few lucky passengers rides in the 2-seater Minardis, made tricky in the snow.
I feel very proud, you know. It's a very historical time now, first Formula One car in China, and I'm very proud to be part of that, you know. Growing up in Malaysia, you know, my family always reminded me of being Chinese and how proud it is to have Chinese heritage, you know.
Although he's lost his drive with Minardi for 2003, he is retained on a promotional basis and proved a big draw with the locals, who still consider him a native son. Formula One will officially come to China with the Shanghai Grand Prix in 2004.
I think that the interest is there in China about Formula One. You know, there's a lot of interest. But obviously not much is known about Formula One from the Chinese people yet.
Listen as the car's traction control battles with the snowbound track. Touring car ace Christian Albers from Holland was a test driver with the team, but his contract expired at the end of last year.
Het is geweldig om hier een keer in China te zijn en helemaal natuurlijk om.
It is great to be here in China, and it's great that Chinese people can now see a real Formula One car for the first time. It's good because the 2004 Grand Prix will be held in Shanghai. I'm sorry the conditions aren't the greatest, but I'm sure the journalists and guests have had the ride of their lives.
He'll return to the DTM class this year, and his countryman Jos Verstappen steps into a Minardi for 2003. A few days later, Minardi's other driver for the forthcoming season, Briton Justin Wilson, was announced. Believe it or not, the newcomer is a massive 6 foot 3 inches, that's over 190 centimetres tall. Wilson, who's 24, was Formula 3000 champion in 2001 and has been trying to find a place in Formula One for over a year. 2 factors counting against him were his lack of a wealthy sponsor and his height. Both problems have been solved to allow the lanky driver to take his place on the grid in Australia in March. Wilson has financed his seat at the team by inviting individual investors to buy a stake in his future success, and he signed a 3-year deal to drive for Minardi after finding his own sponsorship. If he could round up the financial support, team chief Paul Stoddart undertook to provide a car into which he could fit. After his first track session, he was both excited and realistic about the experience.
It's obviously the best car you've ever driven. The most power, best brakes, everything is perfect. But after half a day or a day in the car, you get over that feeling and start to look for ways of making it go quicker, and then it will understeer, oversteer, hill handling, underpowered like any other car you'll drive in your career. So it's just much more advanced, and there's certain things that still blow you away.
Wilson had tried to fit into the 2002 Minardi for 2 races last year, but he was too tall to meet safety standards. Australian aviation tycoon Stoddart rescued the Italian-based team before the 2001 season and has struggled to keep the team going financially. The team has a deal to use the Ford Cosworth engine, which they hope will help them to improve upon their 9th place last season. The new engine makes about 70 brake horsepower more than last year's Asia Tech engines. Wilson's business manager is ex-Formula One driver and medical doctor Jonathan Palmer.
Intense interest in 99, in 2000, and of course in his championship year 2001. And in Justin I saw a potential champion. Now he proved that in 2001 when he won the championship and Formula 3000 at international level. It's no easy championship to win. Of course he's hired, everybody said he'll never make it. I suppose Minardi's almost the patron saint of giving people a break, and that's exactly what we did. We tried to get him in the car in August. He didn't fit this year's car, so we made absolutely certain that he would fit next year's car, and our plans really from August of this year was to have Justin in the car if humanly possible, and I'm just so proud today we're going to do it. I think he will continue in the tradition of Alonso and Webber before him in proving to be a race winner of the future, perhaps a point scorer, and who knows, maybe he could even get a podium for Minardi, because certainly a technical package next year is capable of it.
Wilson was the first Briton to win a Formula 3000 world title, but winning in Formula One will be a much taller order. This year's Detroit Motor Show, better known as the North American International Auto Show, was the scene of a rare launch, the unveiling of a new model from the one manufacturer that everyone looks up to, Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is probably the most English of all the English car manufacturers, although it's no longer really an English company. It's owned by Germany's BMW, just as its one-time subsidiary, Bentley, is now owned by Volkswagen. Tony Gott is chairman and chief executive of Rolls-Royce Motor Cars.
The Rolls-Royce Phantom.
Designers of the all-new car followed the heritage and design principles which have made Rolls-Royce famous over 9 decades. They found inspiration in the Phantom 1 and 2 models of the 1930s, the Silver Cloud of the 1950s, and the Silver Shadow of the 1960s. Features like a long wheelbase, a short front overhang, a deep C-pillar, a long bonnet and an impressive stance were all fundamental design elements and were incorporated into the new Phantom. Quite apart from the famous grille and the iconic Spirit of Ecstasy mascot.
This car has been 4.5 years in development. It's completely original. It's based on the founding principles of Henry Royce, which said strive for perfection in everything you do. So literally everything in the motor car has been thought about from the basics, whether it's the wonderful radiator shell, all the way back through the new engine, new chassis, completely new body frame, all of which is brand new and designed to be at the very limits of technology today.
The result is a car with cutting-edge engineering technology, unparalleled quality, and the finest in hand-built craftsmanship. The Phantom has a lightweight aluminium space frame body and a style inside and out which is every inch a Rolls-Royce. For over 30 years, Rolls-Royce has used a 6.75-litre V8 engine to provide what the factory would only call adequate power. Now it's a V12 of the same capacity, but a wholly modern unit with fuel injection, twin cams, 48 valves and a host of high-tech features. The company's new factory and head office is at Goodwood in West Sussex, UK. It's just 4.5 years since BMW became the custodians of the Rolls-Royce mark. In July 1998, the Germans committed to launch a new company, a new plant and a new motor car in January 2003, and they delivered. Despite the very modern result, many techniques are developed from the company's famous attention to detail. For example, the selection and treatment of the Connolly leather upholstery is legendary. Hides are often bought from Scandinavia and other places where the lack of barbed wire fences mean leather hides free from scars. But they're bought anonymously to avoid having to pay a premium. However, even that process has felt the cold, efficient hand of technology. Laser template patterns are fitted onto single hides to make the best use of each hide, to ensure as little variation in colour as possible, and to cut wastage. The computer makes sure that none of the pieces get left out. More than 600 individual pieces will go into the standard interior. Even the pattern cutting is done by computer. Some aspects of the traditional craftsman have fallen prey to technology, although many tasks are still done as they have been for decades. Just as famous as the legendary leather is the luxurious interior wood trim, handmade from Burr walnut. For years, the Rolls-Royce factory stored mirror images of the veneers used on the dashboards so that they could be replaced with an identical piece if they were damaged. Modern crash and safety requirements mean that the wood is actually a very thin veneer over an impact-absorbing sandwich. But after hours of working by skilled craftsmen, the results are indistinguishable from those achieved without such constraints. In keeping with the Rolls-Royce passion for catering to the customer's every whim, timber trim is available in a variety of woods and colours. The new car is, like most models before it, impressively large. It's 5.8 metres long, 2 metres wide, and despite being mostly aluminium, it weighs 2,485 kilograms, or about 2.5 tons. In other words, with 5 people and their luggage on board, it may exceed the total mass limits of some countries' passenger car driver's licenses. The retro door pattern permits easier access to the rear cabin. Many Rolls-Royces are driven by chauffeurs, but some owners do take the wheel themselves. Thus, the controls are a blend of traditional shining metal and gleaming timber, with an inches deep shine, and an ergonomic and logical layout. Many of the high-tech features are kept out of sight until they're needed. Attention to detail extends to specially made umbrellas concealed in each rear door. The rear of the cabin has the luxurious ambiance you'd expect, but little in the way of mobile office facilities. If you can afford a Phantom, you probably no longer need to work to pay for it. The famous emblem can now be electrically hidden to avoid theft when the car is parked. Self-leveling air springs and electronic dampers combine with the long wheelbase and high-profile tyres to give perfect ride and handling. The 20-inch wheels and tyres were specially developed for the Phantom. It's the first car in the world to feature run-flat tyres as standard, which allows the car to run for 100 miles at 50 miles an hour after a puncture. The Phantom will accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.7 seconds and on to a limited top speed of 240 kilometers an hour. For the record, maximum power is 338 kilowatts. Sir Henry Royce, mechanic, lived by the doctrine: strive for perfection in everything you do. Take the best that exists and make it better. When it doesn't exist, design it. 70 years after his death, it seems that they still do. The Detroit show has seen a lot of concept cars over the year, but a four-wheeled motorcycle powered by a 500 horsepower, 8.3-litre V10 engine is a first. Bike enthusiasts are hoping it will turn out to be more than just a concept. Chrysler unveiled the Dodge Tomahawk, essentially the engine from a Dodge Viper slotted into a unique motorcycle frame. Chrysler executives said while the chrome-draped Tomahawk was outlandish, they were seriously considering whether to build a few hundred, at a price of at least $250,000 each. This is for people who are passionate about engines, said Chrysler boss Wolfgang Bernhard, who rode the Tomahawk on stage. A motorcycle is the most beautiful way to showcase an engine. The Tomahawk can reach 100 kilometers an hour in about 2.5 seconds and has a theoretical top speed of over 400 kilometers an hour. Each pair of wheels is separate and has independent suspension. Bernhard said 4 wheels were necessary to handle the power from the engine. It's 2.6 meters long, has 75 millimeters of ground clearance, weighs 680 kilograms, and holds just 10 liters of fuel. So don't go far from a petrol station and don't let it fall over. A decision on whether to build the Tomahawk for sale will be made in several months. Former World Formula One champion Alain Prost was the attraction at the latest round of the Andros Trophy. A sunny Serre Chevalier in the French Alps was the venue for round 6, where the veteran driver didn't threaten the championship leaders, but a commendable performance saw him finish 8th in the weekend's second final. The Andros is run in some of France's most famous mountain resorts and climaxes in a grand final at the end of the season. The first final was a two-horse race between Marcel Tarrés and Christian Bourragon. Tarrés got his nose in front at the start, but was constantly under pressure from Bourragon, who battled to find an opening. However, Bourragon's efforts rebounded on him when he was hit from behind at a bend and failed to finish, leaving Tarrés to claim a victory, which he promptly celebrated with his traditional donut spins. The second final was far less exciting, with the dominant Jean-Noël Langtuy, who began in pole position, leading from start to finish. His win meant that he kept the pressure on Tarrés at the top of the overall championship standings. Tarrés leads with 742 points, with Langtuy just 28 points behind. The strength of the Ferrari collector's market was confirmed in Bonham's Auctioneer's 5th annual sale, dedicated to the Maranello marque. Held traditionally in the towering, castle-like splendour of Gstaad's Palace Hotel in Switzerland, the sale was highlighted by fierce bidding battles for Ferrari Gran Turismo cars, especially those with Swiss histories. In all, 33 historic Ferraris went under the hammer, recording impressive prices. The hotel ballroom, packed as always with international Ferrari collectors, dealers and enthusiasts, witnessed a fierce bidding battle between a Hong Kong collector by telephone and a Swiss historic racer, both equally intent upon securing a 1964 Ferrari racer.
It's gone 10,000 more so far.
Much interest was shown in a stunning 14,000 miles from new 275 GTB4 in light blue with original tan leather upholstery.
Going to the United States of America at the moment at 575,000.
This Berlinetta set a new auction record for the model.
Still, sir. Last chance then. Well, thank you anyway, sir. 575. Bid here at 575. All done, all finished. Your bidder, Tim. 575,000. Thank you, Malcolm. Against you.
The 1964 Geneva show car was the most successful of just 3 250 GT Lusso Berlinettas prepared for racing. Its illustrious career includes wins in the Tour de France and at Monza, owned and driven by Charlie Muller.
You've come a long way. You've been with me. 535,000. It is against you. It's 535,000 in this gallery. No more. Your car, sir, at 535. Thank you very much.
Another 250 GT Lusso Berlinetta was sold for 332,000 Swiss francs to an anonymous Swiss buyer. This original example was owned by the Swiss Formula One driver Joe Siffert, and after his death in 1971 passed to his friend, local artist Jean Tingley, who kept the Ferrari in his house as a piece of automotive sculpture.
296,000, Malcolm.
The red car that you see behind me is the oldest surviving competition Ferrari. It's a car that has chassis number 002. And if you ask me why not 001, it's because 001 was recycled into another car, as Ferrari often did in the period. So chassis number 002 is the oldest surviving Ferrari. It is the car that started the Ferrari legend.
The ex-Bassana Tipo 166 Spider Corsa was sold to one of Switzerland's foremost collections for almost 1.1 million Swiss francs. So, whether you're taking on the rest of the world, just going for a spin, or starting a new job, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.